So when I say datafication of everything, one of the biggest trends that we see is that for many years people have measured a lot of things, but it's become economically impossible or not seen as relevant to actually save that information. So a good example here would be in a manufacturing environment. In a manufacturing environment you have many machines with sensors. And in the past, those sensors have been used for calibrating operational processes during that process. But what's become impossible previously has been the ability to actually take that information, collect it, store it, and then actually retrospectively do some analysis on it that then lets you revisit that whole manufacturing process. Oracle Racing team, they have really made a transition from the process of measuring statistics on a yacht as it sails, which is not new. People sail with instruments all the time, wind speed indicators, etc., etc. What they've done is that they've increased the number of sensors. There's 300 on the Oracle yacht. But then instead of providing 300 readouts to the crew, what we're doing is actually collecting that information in real time, doing analytics and presenting a subset back of that which is relevant to each individual crew member in a personalized fashion so that they can refine and optimize their own performance as an individual contributor sailor on that yacht. Furthermore, that data actually is then historically collected and compared so that it's used immediately after a race, 15 minutes after a race, so that we have an analytical review of that whole race. And then subsequently over the weeks and moving into months of the whole racing series, that the trends are then able to be captured and analysed such that we're able to understand in a closed loop process, were they the right decisions? Have we improved the performance? So this is an entire shift from traditional sailing where we have had instrumentation with a few metrics to actually capturing that, interpreting it, analysing it, real-time improving performance and driving performance over time. Okay. This will change the yachting racing industry.
A big race.
Business intelligence is interesting. It's a drug. Once you have some, you want some more. I think the other thing which is an interesting dynamic in terms of adoption of analytics is that when I started in the analytical world, working world 23 years ago, it was all about a PC under a desk being used by a few senior executives and typically a few power users in marketing and sales. We now have a situation where 25% approximately, 23-25% of employees in corporates are using analytics at some point in their job. This is going to increase over the next few years to approximately 50%, largely driven by mobile devices, which is going to really increase the reach to new types and classes of people that are on the road rather than at a desk, as well as allow them to move, to have more frequent access. In the morning, every moment can be a decision-making moment. You don't have to be in the office and you don't need to be at your desk. Beyond that, the 75% adoption of analytics actually is going to be invisible analytics, in fact. It'll be working much more at an operational level in an automated fashion with very narrow, closed context or scope decisions. In fact, there's already, we're seeing analytics making the shift already from the commercial world into a consumer world. And really the pioneers of this were the online retail stores that would make recommendations about what products to buy, typically books. These days we see the whole power of recommendation, which isn't a form of analytics, is now absolutely pervasive in the consumer world. So we already have people today that are listening to music, buying more music on the basis of recommendations and personalizations driven by analytics. They actually have no understanding that they are actually interacting with an analytical process. So the term predictive analytics is interesting because the example that I just gave about personalization and recommendations for buyers and consumers is actually a predictive analytical process. The term predictive analytics actually is often, by executives, somewhat confused with the idea of forward planning. When we move into the board level decision makers are not worried about what happened yesterday, what happened last week. What they're interested in is what should we do next month, next year, in the next 5 years? What should our strategy be going forward? And this is an area where predictive analytics inputs into it, but it's also an area where we start to bring in other analytical techniques such as scenario modeling and strategic planning. And in that world, we start to turn the bridge between business analytics into the world of enterprise performance management and strategy definition.